This is something that never ceases to amaze me. I think it is not only a betrayal of of Jewish women, pretty much, but also puts all the girls and women across the globe in danger because not believing when there are so many different kinds of evidence, and we just heard about the bodies, the corpses of the mutilated women and raped women, and there are video footages. Not believing this actually is undoing one of the greatest achievements of feminism in the last few decades. I believe you became the motto of the last few years, but here, when faced with so many proofs and evidence, there is just refusal to believe. And I think this refusal to believe is the result of the fact that this massive systematic rape of Israeli women complicates the narrative of the Israeli-Palestinian conflict, because this is something that never formed part of this local conflict in the Middle East. It is something that is foreign to the conflict, and which shows us that the Hamas attack really is a watershed in the history of this area.
If these feminist movements, these women's organizations, aren't serving the interests of women by remaining silent, by this treachery, as you call it, then just what interests are they serving? What purpose do they have if they can't fulfill their clear mission statement?
Well, I do think they have certainly failed us and other women. In many cases, I assume this is just the result of ignorance or of sympathizing with the Palestinians, especially in Gaza, who we have to say are also victims of other kinds of violence, but not of this sexual violence, which, as I said earlier, has just not been a part of the conflict, and definitely not anything like what we've seen recently about October 7th, the assault of October 7th. No mass raping, group raping, mutilation. This was not part of the conflict. So the refusal to see, I think, reflects the also a failure of the historical burden that the world today has to acknowledge a watershed of historical magnitude in the conflict. By disregarding and silencing the victimization of women, Israeli women, this is something that cannot be justified in any way, definitely not in sympathizing with the suffering of Palestinians. You can sympathize with the suffering of Palestinian civilians and still not be complicit in sexual violence of the kind that occurred on October 7th, and silence, as feminists have been arguing for quite a few years now, silence is complicity. And by keeping silence in the face of such gender-based atrocities, these feminist movements indeed are betraying their mission.